we just finished the 97 season, 98 Super Bowl with a championship in Super Bowl 32 against the Green Bay Packers, where I single-handedly won that game. It's amazing, the performance I've put on. A lot of people don't even realize. They all take about, hey, if John Elway doesn't, the helicopter thing, if I don't miss my block, that never happens. So you're welcome, right?
Yeah, it doesn't say that in the Wikipedia. My next guest on Soup with Coop is an Idaho Vandal, a three-time Super Bowl champion, broadcaster, actor, and one of the great guys in all of sports, Mark Stinky Stink Schlereth joins Soup with Coop. Welcome, my friend.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Coop, man. I know that we've met along the way, but we've never really had an extended conversation. So I'm excited to have this conversation and have some soup with you.
We're overdue, my friend. We're overdue. And I know, Mark, you're from Alaska. I would imagine Alaskans are big soup eaters.
Yeah, because it's cold, 8 months of the year. So you wanna be able to warm your innards with some soup. Most of the time, I'm a meat with a side of meat guy is kind of the way I operate. But we've got the minestrone. Is it minestrone soup? Yeah, it's actually delicious. It's got some noodles in it and some vegetables and things of that nature that normally are not part of my diet. So
it's delicious.
This is a nice change.
Yeah, I don't normally go with minestrone, but today it is absolutely delicious, filled with vegetables and treats galore.
Yeah, it's very good, very good.
I was doing some research on minestrone, and clearly an Italian root there, but it's really known to be kind of a soup of the paupers, an old porridge, kind of the poor man's soup that, as time progressed, they added more vegetables as people got a little more affluent. But this is not a aristocratic, noble person's soup. It's an everyday lineman, guard, kind of a,
right.
A
that makes perfect sense, right? It is what was the oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the Disney movie, because that's how, as a father and then a grandfather now, really that's all Ratatouille. Like it's like you just throw a bunch of stuff together, right? And then you make a meal of it. So that's kind of this particular soup, and I appreciate that. This is actually kind of an offensive line. You don't ever want to be like, if you play offensive line, the only thing you really want to be is a tagline at the end of the game that the quarterback or the running back says, like, hey, you got to think the big guys up front, for that 200 plus yards. Let's talk about me for a while, right? So, because if your name gets mentioned, you probably really suck. So, like, you just want to be the tagline. You just want to be the big fellas, the hog mollies, whatever it is. But that's really all you want. And then, so this soup is the perfect compliment to being an ex-O lineman.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to talk about their O lineman having a quiche.
No, right, exactly. Nothing fancy, right? Absolutely. You just want to get in there. You want the meat and potatoes of the National Football.
Now, Mark, you mentioned 245. What was your playing weight? You grew up in Alaska? Probably. I was looking at the great Alaskans that have entered the NFL.
Uh-huh.
You're the first one on the list of highlights. So when a guard leads the way, you can tell that you're in pretty elite company.
Yeah, well, there's not a whole lot of, number one, total population of Alaska is probably about 500,000, so it's not like a hugely populated state. And shoot, Coop, when I was playing high school football, we played 6-7 games. Like, we would end in October. So, by the time you get to go to college and partake in college football, the kids that you're competing against, they play double, triple the amount of games that you got to play, right? So from just an experience standpoint, you're very limited from an experience standpoint. So I had 2 scholarship offers coming out of Alaska. Both teams came up to basically do a football camp in Alaska. I think going into my senior year, maybe. And so I partook in this camp, and I was athletically gifted, but I wasn't a huge guy. And I got the opportunity. I got scholarship offered in Hawaii and Idaho, and honestly, because of my lack of experience, because I didn't play, a ton of games in high school, I went on my recruiting trip to Hawaii and I really questioned whether I could play at that level.
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea. And so then I went to Idaho and I felt like, well, you know what? I'm not going to ride the bench. I'll probably get an opportunity to play maybe after a redshirt year or whatever. And at least I know I'm going to get to play. And that was really, the biggest reason I chose to go to the University of Idaho is I thought that my skill set based upon my high school football experience fit better at the University of Idaho. So that's really, people go, well, you wouldn't go to Hawaii. Two things. One, I didn't think I could play there. Two, I didn't want to wake up to sunshine. I grew up in Alaska, right? Like I would go nuts waking up to sunshine every day of the. I need some snow. I need some sleet. I need some garbage. And so I thought, well, at least Idaho will provide that for me during the wintertime, so it'll be a little bit more like home.
That's amazing that someone from Alaska would not want any sort of culture shock of great weather every day. I'm glad to know you're stuck in your roots and you like it the way it is. What were you weighing coming out of high school as a recruit? How much were you always a lineman? Were you a skilled guy that just gained weight and turned into a lineman, or were you always in the trenches?
Well, no, I always played offensive line. But I was coming out of high school at 220, 225. And then, I played linebacker in high school. I played center in high school. And then when I got to the University of Idaho, I went from playing center to playing nose guard, defensive end, played some outside stand-up linebacker, and ended up getting hurt so often. I was hurt so much during my college career that I actually was retired as a junior. And so I was completely retired from football as a junior in college. And so I had at the time I had 6 knee surgeries during my college career, and I had an elbow surgery, and that's what retired me. And I ended up, getting healthy from the surgery and starting to work out again, and basically going into my senior year, begged the university to let me play. Like, just let me finish, right? And I ended up here 19 or 20 years old, whatever you are. And I signed papers to limit their liability toward me as an injury risk for them to allow me to come back, right? I didn't talk to my dad. I didn't talk to anybody. Oh, yeah, what do you need me to sign? Hey, I'm good, right? So I come back for my senior year, and I switched over to guard, which I hadn't played because I had played center and a bunch of different positions. So I switched back over to guard, and I ended up playing my senior year at guard and making it through the season healthy. And I had no agent. I had no interest. I played 1 year of college football, but it was always my dream since I was 12. Growing up in Alaska, I was a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so it was always my dream to play in the NFL. And I had nothing. I was just kind of stuck. And one of my teammates, a guy by the name of Marvin Washington, went on to play for 11 years, 11, 12 years in the league, was drafted by the Jets. He calls me up one night and says, hey, man, the Bengals are coming to work me out tomorrow at the facility. He goes, why don't you show up to my workout? And I was like, thanks. And we called him Dirty Wash, Dirty. I said, thanks, Dirty. I appreciate it, right? And so I showed up to his workout, introduced myself to the scouts for the Bengals, and just begged them to let me work out. And the thing for me was I could run. I could, even with the knee surgery, even with the issues, I could run. I could jump. I've always been strong as an ox. I've always had weight room strength and field strength. And so Marvin invited me to his workouts, and I just show up to Marvin's workout. And here's the crazy thing about friendship. Here's one of the things I love about being an athlete, or love about sports in general, is that you celebrate somebody else's success like it's your own. And there's not many places in the world that happens, right? Where there's not jealousy. So I showed up to Marvin's workout and absolutely blew him away. Like, I run faster 40. He was a defensive end at 6'6". He was a former basketball player, 6'6", 265, 270. Had 1 year of college football because he played college basketball at UTEP and the program got canceled. So he transferred to Idaho and played college football and got 14 sacks, right? So he's this hot commodity. And I show up to his workouts. I blow him away in the bench. I blow him away in the eye test. I blow him away in the 40s, like everything. Like I probably cost him 3 or 4 rounds in the draft. He got drafted in the 6th round. He was supposed to go in the 2nd or the 3rd, right? But I'm telling you, Coop, probably 15 different times he called me and invited me to his workout. And I showed up, and that's how I got on the radar. And my film was good, from my last year. My film was good, and I ended up getting calls on my own from different teams that come to work me out. And so even at that, I was probably 280-ish. I mean, the Washington Redskins worked me out as an H-back. They wanted me to play tight end. Because I was a legit 4'7", 4'8", 4'7", 4'8" guy. I could run and I could do those things at that weight. So they wanted me initially to be an H-back. Anyhow, they ended up drafting me because then they sent Billy Devaney, who used to be, he was a scout for us, and then he became the GM of the Rams. And Billy and I are good friends, but he came and worked me out. Then he sent the O-line coach, Joe Bugle, the legendary coach, to come work me out. And they ended up drafting me and as a center. But I think the coolest part of this story is the connection you have with your friends, right? The connection you have with the guys that you played with. So we get done. I mean, I play 6 years in Washington. I leave. I go to Denver. We just finished the 97 season, 98 Super Bowl with a championship in Super Bowl 32 against the Green Bay Packers, where I single-handedly won that game. It's amazing, the performance I put on. A lot of people don't even realize. They all take about, hey, if John Elway does the helicopter thing, if I don't miss my block, that never happens. So you're welcome, right?
Yeah, it doesn't say that in the Wikipedia. I don't know what happened. I mean,
right? Yeah. So anyhow, I'm sitting in the training room where I spent the majority of my career with ice on, doing something in the off season from a surgery I just had. And Mike Shanahan comes down and says, hey, man, we need a backup defensive lineman, some guy that can play, that can be a rotational guy that can play DN, D tackle, a guy that fits, because I just need a guy that really fits with our football team. And he goes, and he just hands me a sheet of paper. There's like 7 names on it. He goes, I don't know any of these guys. Well, you know them all. You've played for a long time. He goes, any guy on here that really kind of fits our team? So I grabbed a piece of paper. I'm looking at the piece of paper. And the first name I see about halfway down is Marvin Washington. And I go, hey, sign him. He fits. So he signs Marvin, and Marvin and I play together in 1998 and win a world championship together, Super Bowl 33. So the only reason I played in the National Football League is because of Marvin Washington. And Marvin Washington, the only reason he got a Super Bowl is because I said, sign him, bring him to us. And so it's kind of a full circle situation with Marvin. It was just a blessing to be a part of that guy. And I owe my NFL career to Marvin Washington.
And I love stories like that. And that's what football is all about. It doesn't surprise me that a guy with the nickname of Dirty is looking out for a guy with the nickname of Stink. I mean, they seem like the right kind of tandem. Maybe you might see Dirty and Stink doing karaoke down on Bourbon Street, but you don't think those guys looking out for each other and extending NFL careers and turning into Super Bowls. That's awesome. That's what sports are all about. And unfortunately, there's not enough of that, and there's too much. Look at me. But that's right. I like that. I'm glad you shared that with us. Being drafted in the 10th round, was that exciting or was that depressing? Because the 10th round doesn't exist anymore.
No, legendary O-line coach Jim McNally for the Bengals worked me out a bunch, and he loved me. He every time I see him, he goes, "You're the one that got away." That's what he always says to me. And so Jim was calling me every round. Like the first round went down. I was playing dunk hoops up at the SAE house with I wasn't even there. It was on TV at the time, so I wasn't even home in case the phone rang. I was like, "There's no way I'm getting drafted." Like not on day one, and so I'm not even home. I get back home after we play hoops and we're doinking around, and my phone starts ringing, and it's Jim McNally, the O-line coach of the Bengals, and he calls me literally every round. Like from the 2nd or 3rd round on, going, "Hey man, I'm standing on the table for you. I'm trying to get them to draft. Right? So literally every round, it's the fourth round, it's the fifth round, my phone rings. It's, hey, I'm on the table for you, man. I'm gonna get you. And it goes, the Bengals get up, and sure enough, it's a different name, it's not my name. And he calls me, like I said, every round, and the 10th round's coming up. And he calls me and goes, finally, they're going to let me take it. This is it. This is the round, right? I go, okay, great. And I'm not sure where their pick was. It was like 270, and I was like 263 for Washington. So my phone rings, and I think it's the Bengals. I think that's where I'm going. And sure enough, it's the Washington Redskins, and they say, hey, man, you're the 263rd pick of the and hey, listen, man, I was dumb enough at that time, the 10th round. I felt like I puffed out my chest. I was like, hey, give me a coach ticket. I'm ready to go. and I did. I flew coach, and I got to Washington. And I tell you, it's such an interesting thing because you go to the mini camp, right, Coop? And I'm a 10th rounder out of Idaho, an off-injured guard from Idaho, right, playing center. And you're in at that point, you're in helmets, no pads, and it's full go. I mean, there is no, we're not walking off the ball. This is full go. And I never forget, I'm standing around watching veterans compete. And I was literally like, oh, I don't think I belong here. Right? I mean, like, I don't know. And so I get my opportunity to go. And I'm playing against Tracy Rocker, who was the first player taken in that draft out of Auburn. He was the Outland Trophy winner. Mm-hmm. And he's playing nose and I'm playing center. And got thrown in the drill one-on-ones, and it was like that. It was just like clockwork, man. Bam, you
like
stabbed
riding
him.
A bike.
Always had strength and good hands.
Came natural to you, just not
right.
You thought you were in awe, but at the same time, you did.
Like I'm like anybody who's played. I'm a competitor, right? And it's time to compete. Was I nervous? Yeah. Was I scared? Absolutely. But you know what? I'm going to compete, and so. At that point, I was like, oh, shoot, this is the Outland Trophy winner from Auburn, and I'm handling it. No problem, and we had some great epic battles, but I was like, I belong. And it was one of those kind of epiphany moments where you're like, okay, it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter, if you traveled on coach, on in the back of the United flight on coach, or if they got you a first class ticket. The fact is you got here, and once you got here, like I was always big on don't talk yourself out of it, right? I mean, the only way that I wasn't going to make a football team, and I convinced myself of this, is because I wasn't good enough. And at that point, you're like, if I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, right? I can live with that, but it wasn't going to be a lack of effort or preparation or study or any of that stuff. I was like, I'm going to fight my ass off to try to make this thing a career, because it's been my childhood dream since I was 12. And so that was kind of my epiphany moment when I realized I actually belong. I actually deserve to play. And anyhow, the rest is history. 12 years later, it was a good run.
With Caesars Sportsbook and Casino, every bet earns with Caesars Rewards. That means whether you win or lose, you're always earning towards perks like free stays at iconic Caesars properties, game tickets, dining, and more. And if you haven't started yet, here's a reminder. Your first bet is on Caesars, up to $1,250. Download the app with promo code OMAHAFULL and place your first bet. If you win, congrats. If you don't, you'll get it back as a free bet.
It's no secret your injury history is well documented. 29 surgeries, 20 on the knee. There's many quotes. Coach Shanahan talks about your pain threshold. Mark, do you ever look back and go, maybe I, should have been a dancer or an actor or something? I mean, 29 is a lot.
No, it is. And, it's probably 9 parts stupidity and 1 part, whatever, toughness. It was always important to me to be a great teammate. And that was part of kind of my mission statement was, I play this game not for money or not for myself. I play this game for the people that I play with, for the organization that I play for. And that's coaches, that's trainers, that's equipment guys. I had a 6-year running dart game with the equipment guys. I had a cribbage game that was going on for 6 years with the Greek and Steve Antonopoulos Greek and
Yep.
the whole training room staff. As a matter of fact, Greek had he had some type of surgery, like an appendectomy, and I came down to visit him when he woke up from surgery with a cribbage board in hand and took his money down at the Swedish hospital. So, I had these connections and these relationships, and I always felt like it was my responsibility to play injured, not just hurt, but to play injured and play well injured. And I took a great deal of pride in doing that because it wasn't about me. It was about the people that I played with. And, I thought that was important. I actually, my first year here in Denver in 1995, I woke up on a Sunday morning. We had a Monday night game against the Raiders. I woke up on a Sunday morning with kidney stones, and I was just like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, just in excruciating pain. If you've ever had kidney stones, people who they can relate to it, they're awful, right? And so my wife, because she had dealt with me before, she's like sent me downstairs on the couch. She goes, try to sleep it off, see if you can just kind of. So I muscled through till, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And I'm like, it's miserable. And my parents happen to be in town. So we told them we were going to the hospital, and she takes me to the hospital, and I spend all day in the hospital. They transfer me from one hospital to another hospital. The stones they're so big, I can't pass them. And so it's like literally 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, Sunday night, we got a game the next morning against the Raiders, our arch rivals. And they're like, hey, we're going to have to surgically take these kidney stones, right? So, Coop, I'm like, all right, let's roll. So you roll down the hallway, right? And they roll me into the operating room. And you got your little gown on, but you're butt naked. It's literally snowing in the operating room. So, you'd have to get a flashlight and a pair of tweezers to take it. It's so cold in there, right? And I am laying on this table. Every person in there is female. Like the nurses, my anesthesiologist is female. Everybody is female. And so the scrub down nurse comes in and goes, are you allergic to iodine or betadine? Because I'm going to be your scrub down nurse. They go right through your junk, and they go through your junk, through your bladder, I think it's the ureter that goes from your kidneys down to your bladder to take these stones out. And I looked at the anesthesiologist. I'm like, hey, listen, it's freezing cold in here. You guys are going to need to put me out before she starts scrubbing me down. So I literally go to sleep, right? Got my legs in the stirrups. I wake up, and I have to take a morphine shot to take it's all blood. Like it's horrible, right? And the next morning, I check myself out of the hospital at 10 o'clock in the morning. I drive to pregame. I eat a piece of toast. I drive down to the stadium and play against the Raiders. We beat them 27-0. Straight out of the emergency operating room onto the field to play the Raiders. And that to me was, that's what I do. That was my responsibility. So I've always taken, not that I'm proud of myself, but I've always taken great pride in answering the bell for my teammates.
Mark, as a tough guy, were there times did you think you had an influence over a teammate? You mentioned being a great teammate, and I think that's how they always talk about Mickey Mantle. As much as he did for baseball, it was all in the outfield. It says Mickey Mantle, a great teammate. Ignore all the hoopla and the highlights and being the most popular guy. I thought that was cool because he's just a grounded guy. But there are people in the locker room that you thought were a little more self-centered and me guys that you were able to kind of spread the good teammate gene to them and make them look at things a little differently at times? Well,
yeah, I hope so. I hope that was part of my legacy. and just the whole, it's not only playing hurt and playing injured, but playing well hurt and injured. Like that was part of the mantra, right? It's not enough to play hurt. You got to play well hurt. And anybody can play the game when they feel good. You got to be able to play the game when you feel like, and you got to play well. And so that was always part of what I believed in, or what I tried to bring to a football field, kind of that leadership through setting an example, through doing it. But Rod Smith was a teammate for a long time, and one of the great Broncos in the history. Should be in the Hall of Fame. He's a phenomenal football player. Never missed a workout, never missed any. I mean, anything. He would throw, like, he'd be more proud when we play a game against the Raiders, and Mike Anderson's running for us, and he breaks one down the sideline, and we run 19 handoff strong or something, and Rod's the X receiver on the backside, and he breaks one down the sideline. He's weaving in and out, and Rod loops around, and the nose guard for the Raiders at the time. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. But big, what's that?
Not Chester McLaughlin.
No, it wasn't Chester. It was another one of them big hog molly type guys. But I'll remember it at some point. It doesn't matter. Rod loops around from the X, and the guy's chasing down the sideline, trying to, he's 20 yards behind or whatever. And this is back when you could blindside people, and you just got applauded and pat on the back instead of fine. But Rod loops around and absolutely Grady Jackson.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely lays Grady Jackson out. I mean, just over tea kettle, feet in the air, right? So we're in the next day on Monday, looking at the film or whatever. And we come out of the O-line meeting room, and Rod is in the locker room. Now, Rod probably had 7 catches and 2 touchdowns for 112 yards. All he could talk about was blowing up Grady Jackson. It was like the greatest. It was like that was how our team was. And that's how those guys were. Like, they took more pride in throwing a great block that sprung TD than they did catching touchdowns and doing all that stuff. But I had a knee surgery, one of the many I had when I was playing. And it was like I had it like on a Monday, and it was Friday. And so I still had this, like, the sutures with the little steri strips. And I actually had blood trickling down my legs because it was still kind of open. And I was pulling up my knee sleeve, and Rod's locker was right across from my leg. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I'm getting ready for practice." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm going to practice." And he just shakes his head, and he goes, "Dude." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "My hammy's a little tender, and they gave me the day off." He goes, "But I can't let you go out and practice with blood trickling down your shins and me take a day off for a hammy." So he got dressed, and he was out there playing, right? Out there practicing. But that was kind of the connection we had as a football team during those years in Denver, which were just phenomenal.
What do you want to eat tonight? And maybe you want a home-cooked favorite, but don't feel like going to the store? Or you want something exciting and new, but it would be great to stay in tonight? DoorDash connects you with everything you want, whenever and however you want it. For a limited time, our listeners can get 50% off up to $20 value and $0 delivery fees when you download DoorDash app and enter the code SOUP23. That's 50% off up to $20 value and $0 delivery fees when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code SOUP23. Don't forget, that's code SOUP23 for 50% off up to $20 value and $0 delivery fee with DoorDash. Subject to change, terms apply.
One of your teammates, arguably one of the most competitive, I hear competitive stories before, but John Elway on the competitive side, just being almost maybe to a fault, like,
right.
A game of pool, or I heard he played pool with Bubby Brister one time, and Bubby beat him, and he, got rid of the pool table. Is the legend of Elway's competitive streak legit?
Oh yeah. Oh, and it's always one of those things, kind of like you always felt like, what do you want me to beat you? You guys want to play ping pong, golf, pool, pop a shot, bubble hockey? Like, what is it? What do you want to lose in today? Because I'm there, bowling, whatever it is. That was Elway, but it's always funny because when you switch teams, you have this kind of opportunity to be a fly on the wall for a while until you assimilate into that team and get to know guys and all that kind of stuff. And it's always interesting to see how guys are, right? How players are. Elway was a legend when I got to Denver. And the thing that I always appreciated is John, in the view of the world's eyes, John had owned or created the right or worked for the right to be a prima donna, if you will, and never was. If we were running as a team, he was running as a team. If we were lifting, we used to do this leg sled thing. Rich Tootin was our strength coach, and it was when we did the leg sled, it was a miserable day because not only they'd stack a ton of weight on it, but then Rich would hold it down, and it's just miserable. It's one of those things you get done doing and you can't walk for 2 days, and the strength coach thinks it's really funny, that type of thing. And so I was in a group, and John was in the group, and we're all just like, oh my God, this freaking leg sled, hammer leg sled thing. And John gets himself strapped in there, and Rich is leaning on it. And John goes, "You realize if I refuse to do this, I'm still going to make the team, right?" and Rich is like, "Yeah, I get it." And he goes, "All right, let's roll," And so John just never used that clout he had as one of the best players in the history of the game to ever shirk his responsibilities to the team. And I always kind of being a fly on the wall and watching, I always really appreciated that about John and the way he worked.
Mark, you made a very seamless transition from football into the broadcasting side, both on TV, calling games, in the booth, what have you. Always loved your time, back in Mike and Mike. They'd bring you in. They loved you. It's like they were so excited. And Greenberg loved to say the word stink. Oh, I got stinking. He would say stink 36 times during your on-air time. But speaking of guys playing hurt, you were pretty outspoken doing a game one time, talking about Jay Cutler one time when he peeled out of a game early from injury. And you were saying, they'd have to pull me out on a stretcher before they're going to, let me sit bench during a deal. Did you enjoy having that platform to kind of speak your mind?
Yeah, I've always looked at it like, Coop, I've looked at it this way, and there are guys that don't like me very much at times, and that's okay. That's the way it is. I just feel like I earned the right to be honest, earn the right to be critical if that's what's required. And so, like, my thought process is there's nobody that gave up any more of himself, from a teammate standpoint, an injury standpoint, whatever the case may be, than I did. And so therefore, like, to me, once that was done, I graduated from playing, and I owe that same type of effort to whoever employs me. And so my deal was to just give to you straight, no chaser. And if you don't like it, that's on you.
Can't thank you enough for being on, buddy. Really enjoyed it.
All right, buddy. Always good to talk to you, man. All the best to you and your family. And like I said before we even started this, I always appreciated your family. They've always been very gracious to me. So thank you for that.
Take care, buddy. Thank you.